Hey, what is going on, Miami Dolphins fans? Welcome back to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and we are wrapping up Detroit Lions week. Final preview and prediction video of the week. Going to tackle viewer questions that were submitted. Going to be giving my final score prediction between the Dolphins and the Lions. But real quick, before we get things started, let's hear from you as well. Drop your final score predictions in the comments. Let's carry on the conversation there. But I want to jump right into the viewer questions today because we got quite a few of them to get to. Number one deals with the running backs. Do you think Myles Gaskin will start getting snaps at RB2? And how can the Dolphins get Chase Edmonds back on track? / could he potentially be trade bait? Well, let's start with Gaskin. First and foremost, you got to be active in order to get snaps right now. He's been inactive the last 2 weeks. So if there was ever a game to maybe give another guy some run, whether it's Gaskin, whether it's Ahmed, you'd want to do it. Chase Edmonds' struggles are well documented right now. Maybe you give a guy an opportunity to take some of those snaps when Mostert's not in the game, because Mostert, we all know, has established himself as this team's leading running back. But here's the deal. I really think that this team coaching staff, Mike McDaniel, I think they like Chase Edmonds. I think they believe in Chase Edmonds. And in order to get him back on track, you can't bench him per se, and you can't give away all of his snaps in order to get him right. Sitting on the bench isn't going to be good for his head, isn't going to be able to get him right. So actually, I think they'll probably end up doing what they have been doing, and that's kind of spelling Mostert with Edmonds sporadically throughout the game, and maybe even draw up a play where he's targeted. Let him try to catch a pass. Let him get over those yips that we've been talking about. You continue to give him carries in the run game. Let him try to hit a hole. Let him try to bust a big one. He's got to try to get over this mental hurdle that he has right now. And in regards to being trade bait, you'd be selling in at such an all-time low. I don't think one, who would want him right now because his production has been so low. But two, when you're selling at such an all-time low for him, you're not going to get much in return. So I would say no, I don't see it. I couldn't potentially rule it out. But if I had to put a call on it today, will Chase Edmonds be a Miami Dolphin after the trade deadline? I would probably say yes. Let's jump into the next question. We'll move on to a Lions receiver here. How do we go about containing Aman-Ra St. Brown? So I want to talk about Xavien Howard here because I think that is your answer, because we've seen games now throughout the season that when Xavien Howard is healthy, we've seen him tail teams' best receivers, and we've also seen him kind of stay on one side of coverage and then bracket the number one wide receiver. But with the lack of other skilled wide receivers for this team, I personally think you go best on best. You just sign Xavien Howard to him. And if the groins issue flare up, maybe you kind of ad lib from the plan at that point in time, and you go to like a bracket coverage and you let Howard play the other top receiver, probably Josh Reynolds. But at the end of the day, I think you just go best on best and let Xavien Howard tail Aman-Ra St. Brown. And that's probably the best way to try to limit his production. Next question, how could the Lions potentially pull off the upset victory? Well, I've got two things in mind here. Number one, if they can run the ball, if the Dolphins fail to contain that run game, we talked about it in a preview video earlier this week. DeAndre Swift is averaging like 8.5 yards per carry. And granted, I think it's on like 27 carries, so it's a small sample size. But early in the season, he was getting it done on the ground. And Jamaal Williams is averaging like 4.5 or 4.6 yards per carry. So between the two, they're averaging the 7th most rushing yards per game in the NFL. The Lions have been getting it going on the ground. So if they can establish that run, make their play action more productive, get TJ Hawkinson involved, open things up where Jared Goff is feeling more comfortable in the pocket, that is definitely a way that this team could end up pulling off the upset victory. But I have another answer for this as well, and that's the Miami Dolphins' mental mistakes. Think about drops, think about penalties, think about route running, think about errant passes, things that we've seen kind of throughout the season. The penalties in that Vikings game killed us. The drops kind of sporadically throughout the season have been killing us. A lot of mental mistakes. Look, the Lions are a team that you got to beat. They're 1-5. They're not this offense. They're not this juggernaut that's just going to come out and be able to beat anybody. So in these kind of games, you just can't beat yourself. So that is a huge thing. Avoid those mental mistakes, and you should be fine. Let's jump into this one. What's going on with Emmanuel Ogbah? And do you think the Dolphins will make any moves before the trade deadline? If they don't make any moves, are you okay with that? Well, let's start with Ogbah. And the first thing with him is the injury. Missed last week against the Steelers. He's been a little bit dinged up, so it's kind of hard to judge his performance as of late. But here's the thing that we kind of forget about sometimes as Dolphins fans, because ever since he's come here, he has produced, I think, like 9+ sacks damn near every single year. He's been pretty good as a pass rusher. But prior to being with the Dolphins in the NFL, he wasn't known as this guy that gets to the quarterback all the time and finishes. He was more of he's like kind of the complete package guy. He's pretty good at everything. And he's more of like this edge setting, run stopping defensive end. So we have to keep that in mind with Ogba, that this time in Miami has been a lot different than the rest of his time in the NFL. So I want to see him get healthy. Oh, the other thing, keep in mind, we've been struggling to rush with 4 or 5 guys the way it is. So it's kind of everything on the defensive front. So if we get these guys healthy, and then if this continues to be an issue moving forward, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But I want to see him get healthy. I want to see him get right. And then over the next few weeks here, if all that lines up, then we can start making a play on Ogba. Because yes, I would like to see more as well right now. But at the end of the day, it's hard to judge these guys when they're not 100% healthy. And then do you think the Dolphins will make any moves before the trade deadline? So I'm actually going to try to dedicate an entire video on Monday to trade deadline talk. So I'm not going to get too deep into that. And if they don't make a move, are you okay with that? To be 100% honest with you, I would prefer a move. I would like either a cornerback or an offensive lineman. This secondary is just so banged up right now. And the problem with how banged up the secondary is, these are some long-lasting issues. Brandon Jones is out for the season. Byron Jones is showing no signs of coming back anytime soon. Sounds like Crossan and Caterco, who are going to be more healthy here moving forward. But at the end of the day, we need these bodies. And like we talked about in one of the other preview videos as well, these guys were reserves for a reason. They weren't starting from day one for a reason. And while they filled in great so far, at the end of the day, they are reserve players. At some point, teams are going to start targeting them more. Veteran quarterbacks are going to target them more. This leaves us with an area of being exposed. So I'd like to see potentially offensive line or secondary addressed. But yes, I will get into more trade deadline stuff here in the next couple of days. But it's time to jump into that final prediction. I've got the Miami Dolphins winning this game 33-14. And look, this is a gotta have it game. And it's not because of like playoff standings and record and all of that. This is a game. This is a matchup against a 1-5 team that you just got to beat. Like I said, throughout this video, throughout the week, the Lions are not this team that is just going to set the world on fire. This is a gotta have it game because you can't be losing games when you're the Miami Dolphins and you start 3-0 and you've got these playoff aspirations. This is a game that you just simply can't lose to a Lions team, even if it's on the road. It doesn't much matter. Avoid those mental mistakes. Get the offense going. Stop their run game. Allows you to get pressure on Goff. Look up Jared Goff's history against the Miami Dolphins. This Dolphins defense has caused him fits. So keep that in mind. Stop that run game. Avoid those mental mistakes. Dolphins win this puppy 33-14. But that's what I've got for today. But I want to hear your predictions as well. Drop those in the comments. And damn it, let's get this win on Sunday. Speaking of Sunday, kids, Halloween, trick-or-treating. I don't know yet when I'm going to be able to do my recap video following that game, but at some point I will get to it. And like I said, I'll be hitting a trade deadline video as well. But that is my time for today, Dolphins fans. Let's get that win on Sunday and fins up.